Bom dia. Good morning to everyone. Sorry for our short delay. Desculpa pelo atraso. We had a technical problem. A maioria de vocês é brasileiro, mas eu vou ter que falar inglês porque senão o Dr. Yusuf não nos entende, ok? So, vou começar. I'm going to start presenting Professor Yusuf. It's a great pleasure to have you here today, Professor Yusuf. Yusuf Natshe, he's the General Director of the Center for Jerusalem Studies at Al-Quds University in the Old City of Jerusalem. Al-Quds, which is the Arabic name for Jerusalem, the Asanta, how the Arabs call Jerusalem. This university is a Palestinian university in Jerusalem. Dr. Yusuf was born and raised in Jerusalem. He received his PhD from the University of London, School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS, in 1997, specializing in Ottoman architecture. He served as the director of the important Department of Tourism and Archaeology at the Al-Qaf administration at the Noble Sanctuary in Jerusalem. That is o Nobre Santuário, o Haram al-Sharif, a Esplanada das Mesquitas. Então, ele foi o diretor do departamento encarregado desse local, desse sítio histórico e religioso. Suas responsabilidades, his responsibility included the valuable collections of the Islamic manuscripts in the Islamic Museum and the Restoration Center at Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, na Mesquita Al-Aqsa. Dr. Natshe he supervises numerous master's theses, and he's an active council member of many Palestinian societies focused on architectural heritage in Jerusalem. In this capacity, he frequently serves as a consultant for projects related to Jerusalem. Dr. Natshe has published several books and more than 60 articles focused on Jerusalem's architectural heritage, including the well-received Architectural Survey of Jerusalem's Ottoman Architecture, published in 2000 and recently republished as the book Discovering Jerusalem's Secrets, Walking Trails Through the Old City and Beyond. And moreover, he's a frequent guest and participant in international workshops, conferences, seminars, and it's a great pleasure to receive you for this class, Professor Yusuf Natshe. And I hope you can all, I will ask you to speak slowly, of course, but you have all the time you like until 12 o'clock. Thank you very much for being with us. I'll leave you with our students.
Thank you very much for these sweet words and for your correct pronunciation for our Palestinian sites. It's truly a pleasure for me to join such a course and to join you. And deeply, I hope my lecture and my introduction for Jerusalem will be enjoyable and informative. Whatever I will say, if it's not clear, I will be more than happy to try to clarify. However, I will start to say in Palestine, in Jerusalem, it is almost afternoon. So, and in Brazil, it's morning. So I will say marhaba, which is mean hello, to bridge between the two timing and our two countries. I would like to thank all the students who are joining, and special thanks for you, Arena. And you remember me how you was so enthusiastic to organize such an academic encounter between Palestine and Brazil when you were visiting Jerusalem along with our all Brazilian friends, especially our friend Alessandro, the Brazilian ambassador. He is a Brazilian, but we consider him really a Palestinian. So he is in the middle. Also, the technical people who are in the room, for all of them, my deep thanks and deep gratitude. and surely I share you also the apology for the delay, but this is the technicality, and I hope that it will be compensated by our lecture and our vivid encounter. Having said that, I would like to say that this is almost mission impossible to introduce Jerusalem in just about 1 hour more or less. Such a city really with its complication, it takes more than 1 hour, but please, it's the next slide. But depending on your insight and your really deep knowledge, I am sure that I will be in a safe atmosphere, and surely I depend and hope that my lecture, our encounter, will raise a lot of questions and comments. For me, as a Jerusalemist person who just left the city for 2 reasons. The first is to be for my education, which, as you mentioned, it is in Cairo and London, and the second for my travel. So for me, Jerusalem really, it's not just a city, or it's not a matter of a city which really revive my childhood memories. It is really more than that. In all of my recent books, please, the next slide, my recent books or my articles, could you please shift the slide? Okay. I keep saying that Jerusalem is a city on earth, but it is rooted in heaven. Why? Because whenever you speak to anyone who is attached to Jerusalem, who is associated or who belong or consider himself identified with this city, he keep telling you about a verse from the Quran or a verse from the Bible or from the Old Testament or about a saint or a rabbi or a Sufi or whatsoever. So Jerusalem actually is a spiritual city. It's a religious city, and a city really which is, please, next slide, which is really unique among the cities of all the world and especially of the old city. So for us, Jerusalem is unique really, though it is just 1 square kilometer in its area. But it's not a matter of size or area. It is the matter of the quality. It is the matter of the spirituality. Please, next slide. So where one could find a city such as Jerusalem really is venerated, sacred, holy for the 3 monotheistic religion, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. And surely my lecture would like to touch on all of these aspects, but my mission is to concentrate about Islamic and Arab heritage, believing that most of the audience may be aware to some extent about the city heritage, the city position, the city importance, the city's values in Christianity, and to some extent in Judaism. So there is many holy cities in the world, but rarely, if it's not almost nothing exists or impossible, that such a city is shared by 3 monotheistic religions. And to some extent, according to certain research, even in early Bronze Age, when paganism used to reveal, even at that time, Jerusalem as a city used to have a regional importance. It's not just its locality, which it's make its importance. Please, next slide. So the city, we have, for instance, Mecca and Medina, but all these two cities just belong to Islam. You will not find any other person who not believing in Islam venerating such cities. Take, for instance, Varanasi. It is for the Hinduism. Take the Vatican. Take other cities like Lhasa. So in this regard, as a small city shared by many religions, just Jerusalem, according to my best knowledge, is found in the city, in our really daily life, in our past, and even to some extent, it's going to impact us on the future of the region and the future of the Palestinian people in specific. Jerusalem as a city, as an old city, as it is seen today, really, it holds a strategic position in Palestine. It is almost in the middle of the country, and that really gave it also its centrality in Islam and in our daily life of a Palestinian people who are living under occupation. For this reason, most of the cities, most of the towns, most of the villages in Palestine, from north, south, east, west, as a local, are really coming to Jerusalem as a center, and that could be applied also for the rest of the region at that time. So one major, please, next slide. In addition to its central location, the topography of the old city of Jerusalem really is so important because it dictates and it affects its architectural development and affects anyone who are visiting the city as it is exists today. So it is really comprised from many hills, 4 hills: Moria, which is the Al-Aqsa Mosque; Bezita, where is the Saadi quarter; Accra, where is the Christian quarter; and even the Citadel. And we have 3 valleys, one to the, please, next slide, one which crosses the central of the city from north to south, and the second is surrounding the old city to the east, and it's named Valley Qadrun or Wadi Gehonom or Wadi Jahannam. And we have another one which is really in the western part. These 3 valleys actually, and the 4 hilly areas comprises a topography of the city, and that make the character of the city really different from any other terrain or topography. Please, next slide. As it is seen today, Jerusalem is made up of many landmarks and compounds. The most important one is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which has the golden dome, and it is to the east of the old city of Jerusalem. And surely we have the Church of Holy Sepulchre, which is to the west part, and it is also very important in addition to the Citadel. And the slide shows us what roads we have and what terrain also really which affects Jerusalem in its past, in its history also. Please, next slide. So the old city as it is seen, this red really part, which has seen in the last slides. Please, let's have the first, the previous one, please. Sorry. just to show you. The previous slide, if it's possible, please. No, that is the left. Okay. Okay, that the last slide or the previous slide shows us a very small spot in the southern part of the old city of Jerusalem. Yes, another one, which is really what we call the Jewish quarter. But that quarter was highly enlarged and after 1967. So here we have the differences. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. Next slide, please. As I said, Jerusalem, the old city, is made up of many countries, of many hills, but also, as it is seen today, Jerusalem is really has a very complexity of history. It is a religious city, is a spiritual city, but also has really many difficulties. The history of Jerusalem generally suffers from contradiction. That contradiction increase in complexity if we go deeper to its history or to its early stages of history. Among the features characterizing the city history are the lack of documents compared to other historical cities, the numerous powers really that ruled it and left its imprints, its priority of the culture, and the great number of times that the city was destroyed and rebuilt. In addition, the history of the city really is connected mostly to religious events. And very often, history becomes entangled, mixed with sometimes folklore, fictions, legends, and it's not easy for an historian really to try to see what sort of facts. So much of Jerusalem, old history, one could say it is imagined history, or it is the favored one, how I would like to visualize it. And that left a lot of problems concerning the city past, recent times, and its future. Next slide, please. Now, the city also has many really religious events. Just I would like to point for what Muslims consider one of the most important or attachment to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the old city of Jerusalem. It is the night journey or the miracle of the night journey of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. See, this young child is celebrating such an event after 1400 years of its occasion, and it is in Al-Aqsa Mosque in the Dome of the Rock, and that really it's vivid for him to see what sort or what imaginable beast which carried Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, from Mecca to Medina. Please, next slide. Jerusalem, as I said, it is made today, the old city, from many landmarks. For instance, this is what is considered by the Israeli narrative the Western Wall or the Walling Wall. But actually, in our narrative, in the Palestinian narrative, in our religious, in our spiritual, it is Al-Buraq Wall. Al-Buraq is the beast which we have just seen. It's imaginable picture which carried Prophet Muhammad. But this wall is so important because it is an essential part of Al-Aqsa Mosque architectural fabric. And just I would like to remind, though it is now the most important place for the Israeli authority, for the Israeli soldier to come there, and is considered to be the most holy site for the Jewish people, really, I would like just to remind you that in 1936, a committee from the League of Nations, after has been summoned by the Queen of Great Britain, announced and declared that this is a Muslim property. And surely later I will come to explain how come that such a plaza is today vacant. What was its architectural development in the past? Please, next slide. So this shows just Ramadan is coming next week. So congratulations for all. And this shows what sort of attachment do Palestinian really has with the Dome of the Rock, with the Al-Aqsa Mosque. These scenes shows us the beloved Al-Aqsa Mosque as it is full of people. And it shows us also another indication what part of Al-Aqsa Mosque is holy, what part of Al-Aqsa Mosque is blessed, because there is a great dispute between the Muslim, Arab, Palestinian point of view, while we consider Al-Aqsa Mosque as a compound is holy, and the holiness is applied in interior and exterior. The Israeli authority, the Israeli occupation authority, consider the holiness, the blessing is just in the interior of Al-Aqsa Mosque, which we see, the Dome of the Rock, which we see, and Al-Aqsa Mosque, which we are going to see later. Please, next slide, please. So, what Jerusalem, what Al-Aqsa means from historical, religious, social, even political point of view. I would like to quote to show you what Jerusalem is meant for the Muslim community, for the Palestinian, for the Arabs in particular. I quote from the speech of the Friday prayer, which was delivered after Saladin liberated Jerusalem from the Crusader. That used to be a crucial moment, a vital moment, and many scholars of Islam and theologians prepared themselves to have this honor. So many speeches were prepared. Then Salah ad-Din gave it to the great judge, the chief judge of Aleppo, Ibn Zaki. So Ibn Zaki addressed the people, showing that what is Jerusalem importance in Islam. He said, it is the homeland of your father Ibrahim. Ibrahim is playing, peace be upon him, Abraham is playing a great role in Muslim faith. Also, he has a great significance in Christianity and Judaism. He is a uniting figure, really. And he keeps saying what point of importance for Muslim concerning Jerusalem. It is the ascension, a place by your Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him. And in addition to that, it is the first Qibla. Qibla literally is a direction. And in Muslim prayer, in order to be according to its rules, one should turn his faces to a specific area. Also, it's not just a face, it's a matter of heart, it's a matter of mind. And Jerusalem used to be the first Qibla, then now it has been transferred to be to Mecca, but it has the memories, it has the sympathy, it has the importance. Jerusalem, the first few months in Islam with the Prophet Muhammad, they turned their faces to Jerusalem. Also, Muslims in the Quran, Jerusalem is considered the city of the prophets, the city of David, the city of Solomon, the city of Jesus Christ. It is the region of the shrine of the prophets, destination of pious messengers, sources of revelation. So Islam, even to some extent, consider themselves Muslim, that they are a continuation of a Christianity, continuation of Judaism, and with their own point of view and to certain aidan correction. It is also so important because Muslims share Christianity, Judaism, but they elaborate more that Jerusalem is the land of the congregation, the place of the day of judgment, the place where the resurrection will take place. We have many scenarios, deep scenarios, great scenarios in Islamic and Arabic literature, which put the imaginable picture how the day of judgment will be. Islam, in what it's considered to be the book of pious, the book of the last day, has many many picture to share. And for these reasons, our great historian Al-Maqdisi, before 1000 years, he emphasizes that though Mecca and Medina is a great cities in Islam, but both will come to Jerusalem in the day of judgment. We also, in this semester, I teach a special course about the virtues of Jerusalem as it is reflected in Arabic and Islamic literature. Please, next slide. In addition to that, also, Jerusalem is really considered holy because it is not that a group of people, in the opinions, in the minds of the Muslims, who declared that the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Jerusalem, Palestine is holy. No, it's not a group of people. It is the God will who mentioned that in the Holy Quran. And the Quran, according to Muslim understanding, is the words of Allah which revealed of Prophet Muhammad. It is not, as some Orientalists may consider, that it is a book which complied by Prophet Muhammad. So that is so important to understand. So the land where Allah, God, sent his messenger with the word of Mary and his Spirit Christ. Also, this is how really Jerusalem is reflected in the minds, in the hearts of the Muslims, that also it is also that easily seen, easily touched when anyone will visit the Dome of the Rock, which I am going to just to point to what sort of importance. Please, next slide. For the sake of the argument, let's forget the religious, the spiritual, the position of Jerusalem in the minds or in the heart of the believers. Does Jerusalem has other importance? Do Jerusalem's people consider their city as an important city? Were some of Palestinians proud about their cities? Surely, yes. It is not the loving of Jerusalem, the esteem of Jerusalem, the respect of Jerusalem in the minds, in the hearts of the Palestinians, the Arabs, or in the whole human community. It's not a matter of some people who could see it as a reaction of an Israeli occupation or a Crusader occupation. See this text, which is written by one of the most important, if he is not the important, the most one, geographical in Islam, Al-Maqdisi. He was from Jerusalem. He wrote the best book in geography as early as the 4th century. Al-Maqdisi was so proud about this city. He says one of his events or occasions that one day he was among selected scholars, councils, with the elected judge Abu Yahya ibn Bahram in Basra. And Basra is a city in Iraq, and it used to be a center of intellectual, a center of thinking, a center of dialogue, a center that a scholar must visit in order to earn a degree of respect. And he says that many countries were mentioned in that time, till people at that time was asked which country was greater. So Al-Maqdisi says, I narrate, I quote, said, ours, he means Jerusalem. They ask, which is taster? I said, ours. They ask, which is better? I said, ours. They ask, which has more bounty? I said, others. They ask, which is bigger? I said, ours. Members of the council, member of the scholars, really addressed Al-Maqdisi and told him that he was an educated person. How come he really claims such things which it's so difficult to prove? So Al-Maqdisi, please, next slide, responded to them with proud, saying that when I said it was greater, it is because it combines, please, next slide, this word with the other earthly life. It is more pleasant because it's cold and heat are not harmful. It is beautiful because it is not bare in beauty, in architecture or keenness or quality of its mosque. It is full of bounty because Allah, God, the Almighty, has gathered in it the fruit of the valleys, the plains, and the mountains. Please remember that the whole historical Palestine is just 27,000 kilometers, square kilometer. For this, we are so proud that such a small country has such a richness in fruits, in a climate, in even variety, and in a blessing. So, and he says that it is pious because of its standing on Judgment Day and was made higher in status than Mecca and Medina, which will be transported to it on this day along with all of the creation. So this reflects, this gives us really what people in the 4th, 5th century, 8th, 9th AD century thinks about Jerusalem and how they reflects their position and the position of Jerusalem in their daily life and in their beliefs. Please, next slide. One could ask, the old city of Jerusalem as it is seen today, 1 square kilometer, with many stratigraphy, with many really disputed areas, who contributed to its architectural development and that it reaches such a status as it is seen today? Surely this is an accumulation of different cultures, of different styles, of different architecture. Never ever we denied as Palestinian the diversity of Jerusalem or its uniqueness or its people, different people. So we see Hadrian, we see even Herod the Great, Constantine, Justinian, Abdul Malik ibn Moran, Saladin, the Prince Tankaz, where is my center is located, with the all of the, even mostly, almost every prominent governor in Islam wished and tried to leave his imprints in Jerusalem to appear as a person who take care of Jerusalem, to appear as a bias in the eyes in the eyes of the subject of his people. So Jerusalem is really a melting pot, but also it is really what it's seen today is the heritage of Islamic architecture mixed with locality and with Byzantine and with the Roman. However, unfortunately, it's so difficult for a person who would like to admire architecture to see, please, next slide, to see a complete or a building which show its authenticity for the city. For instance, I mean, we suffer. We don't so far have a complete or a great part of a Roman building or a Byzantine building. Why? Because this has been really exchanged hands. And also the city suffers from certain campaigns. And the most important factor which makes these cities not exist today, that the city used even in time of war being resided, people never ever left the city, and they need houses, they need to exchange, they need to recycle, and for this reason, unfortunately, we don't have complete Roman or Byzantine, even a church. We have parts. You have to use your imagination in order to reconstruct what has been at that time, and that makes me say that the earliest architectural building which still preserves its complete authenticity is the Dome of the Rock, as we are going to see. But that doesn't make that we don't have many traces or many remains from the Roman time. For instance, the Roman time are the responsible for the planning of the city, its shape. Please, next slide. Thank you. So the Holy City, as it's seen today, it is a medieval Arab Muslim city, or rather an architectural small museum, vivid museum, open air museum, we can say that, full of architectural and decorative elements such as drinking fountains, domes, arches, bridges, mukarnasat, decorative architectural, so minarets, bazaars, vaults, domes, and so on. Though the plan of the city or its really shape is surely reflects a Roman classical city, which is taken from the plan of the Roman military camp. Please, next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. So now I would like to take you to a quick tour. What is the architectural fabric of Jerusalem? What we are going to see? What sort of architecture a tourist could see in the old city of Jerusalem? This is Damascus Gate. Very pleasant. The upper part, actually, which is seen in the picture, it reflects the Ottoman school of architecture. It has the grammar of the Ottoman architecture, especially mixed with Syria. But the lower part, next slide, please, we are going to see another slide. It is really a Roman Hadrian architecture. Later I will see, sorry, this the complexity of Damascus Gate. But this is another gate, which is St. Stephen Gates, and the wall is completely an Ottoman architecture. And here one could see 4 lions or leopards which decorated the gate, which allows people to enter from the eastern part of the old city of Jerusalem to the interior of the city. Here we can see what sort of military and decorative architecture are mixed together. Please, next slide. So this is the details of St. Stephen's Gate, or what we call Bab al-Asbat, or Bab Sitna Maryam. In Jerusalem, names are so important. Please, next slide. More details about the St. Stephen Gates, and also showing what elements of military architecture are inserted in the wall building of Jerusalem. The wall of Jerusalem is so important, really. Surely it's not like the wall of Hadrian at Britain, or the wall of China, or other big historical wall, but compared with Jerusalem, compared with the area of Palestine, really, it's so important because it is built, as it is seen to say, in one campaign, and it is a complete wall if it's compared to other cities like Damascus, Aleppo, and even to some other parts in Palestine like Akko. Next slide, please. So also here is the Jaffa Gate, also, which receives people who are coming from west, and once again it reflects the locality with the Ottoman architecture, with the Mamluk architecture, and which really receive the people when they are visiting Jerusalem. Please, next slide. Here we see Al-Aqsa Mosque. Al-Aqsa Mosque, or the Noble Sanctuary, please be careful. It is not a building. It is not just such a building. It is an open compound. It is a vivid compound. It comprises really 144 dunums that constitute almost 1/6 of the area of the old city of Jerusalem. And it is really, as seen today, also as the old city of Jerusalem is a matter of the development through really many decades, many centuries, and it has the location which is in the east southern part of the old city of Jerusalem. Please, next slide. So here we see once again prayers, believers from all Palestine are coming to celebrate and to visit Al-Aqsa Mosque. Next, please. Another slide, which also see the. Now we come to the one of our icons. It is the most important architectural building in Jerusalem, in Palestine. No, it is not that. It is the oldest Islamic building still extant. It was constructed by Abd al-Malik in 691. It took him 4 years to build the Dome of the Rock. And actually, as Richmond says in his book, as Hillebrand, an authority in Islamic art, Robert Hillebrand, as the past Og Grabar, who was the holding the emirate chair for Islamic architecture, says this building, really, this beautiful building, actually refuses to be aging. Every 40, 30 years, it revives itself. Here, Richmond says, we are so lucky because we see the Dome of the Rock, interior, exterior, as it was constructed by Abd al-Malik. What does that mean? It means that what we are seeing here is the taste, is the approach, is the thinking of Muslim at Umayyad period, how they conceived arts, how they saw it's supposed to be. Please, next slide. So actually, The dome is two domes, inner dome and outer dome, as it is seen in the section. And it has a unique plan. It is an octagonal. It is very rare, really, in Islam to have an octagonal design. Though it is in Palestine, there is a few examples later. This building really affected the people, the designer, the artists in the Renaissance time, that they copied its design because they considered it the Lord Temple. Because this beautiful building, the Dome of the Rock, please, next slide, when it was occupied by the Crusader, first few weeks, they were so reluctant what to do with such a very beautiful building, which completely different than their approaches of arts. Fortunately, later, they reach a conclusion. They said it's supposed to be converted to be a church, to be used the place of masses. They named it the Lord's Temple, Temple Domino. And by this, actually, without really changing any major or essential in its design or in its really decorative elements, by this approach, the Dome of the Rock was preserved, actually. It's so really noticeable. It's so odd that such an important building reflecting the Prophet Muhammad night journey was almost kept intact after the Crusader were really left after Saladin took Jerusalem. What they did is just really reversible actions. They added a big cross on the top of the Dome of the Rock, certain icons, pictures of saints, crosses, masses, and so on. It's really something which really makes one feel something. And inside the Dome of the Rock, we have, please, next slide, we have verses which celebrates Jesus Christ more than it's celebrating the founder or even the Prophet Muhammad at that time. Texts really are, please, next slide, reflecting as they really consider to be a polite invitation from the Muslims for non-Muslims in Jerusalem to come to join Islam, because there are verses from the Quran which really define what is the nature, what is the position, what is the rank of Jesus Christ. And in an obvious, clearly position, it says that Jesus Christ is a true prophet. His mother is Mary, the most moral, the most good example of ethics. He is a true prophet. He performed many miracles, but he is not the Son of God. It's so difficult for a Muslim to understand the idea of the Trinity. Please, next slide. And this shows us the type of mosaics which really decorated the interior of the Dome of the Rock. And surely all of these decorative elements, please, next slide, in my humble opinion, I consider it is a result for three factors. The teaching of the Quran concerning arts and artistic approaches. The second is the Arab administration. And the third, I believe, it is due for the traditional late school of Byzantine mosaics, which used to prevail in the country at that time. Please, next slide. So can you imagine the state of the preservation, the colors, and that these mosaics almost 1400 years old. And here one could notice that you are not going to find a human or animal's representation inside the Dome of the Rock or any religious site, because Islam preferred to avoid such representation if the building is religious. But if it's secular, surely one could find dancing scene, hunting scenes, and others. So this is how the approach of the Dome of the Rock was also seen. So it mainly, the decorative elements, it is either geometrical or inscriptions, or even from the kingdom of the plantation, as we can see here, the tree of palm tree and other fruits. Please, next slide. So it's really the first and the most ancient decorative elements of Islam. Now we are going to pass to the most second important building in Al-Aqsa compound, which we called Al-Jami' Al-Aqsa. What is the difference between Jami' and Masjid? Both are translated in European and Western languages to be a mosque. But Jami' is a congregational mosque where a Friday prayer took place, where is the most important theologian or religious of Islam will give a speech, where is the prince or the governor will attend. But masjid, it could be the place of sujood. Sujood, it means where Muslim could perform a prayer, where could knee and could pray. It could be masjid, it could be with roof or without roof. So this is Al-Jami' Al-Aqsa, and this is the second jewel of Al-Aqsa Mosque as we can see it today. Please, next slide, we'll see the interior of the Aqsa Mosque. So this is the interior. In these days, it looks like as a basilica, but this is the last version which see from Al-Aqsa, from Al-Jami' Al-Aqsa, and this type or this formation or this plan were seen by the Crusader and by Saladin, but before, at the Umayyad period, at the time of Umar, the second Caliph of Islam, really the design, the plan used to be completely different. Please, next slide. So that shows us also the niche, the mihrab to your right hand, the niche or the mihrab, which refurbished by Saladin after taking Jerusalem from the Crusader, and on the left hand it's seeing the marble decorative elements, and once again without any human representation, contrary to Buddhism or Christianity, which really they used human to show the suffering and to show the faith in their opinion. Please, next slide. So this is the main nave or the main aisle of Al-Aqsa Mosque, where the Friday prayer took place. And also, please, next slide. We are going to see, please go ahead, another slide. So Al-Aqsa Mosque has many monumental domes, many monumental places. We have the Dome of the Ascension to our left hand. We have the Dome of the Prophet to our right hand. Or the monumental, it means it really celebrates a certain event or commemorate certain figure related to Al-Aqsa Mosque. Next slide, please. So here also we have fountains, we have pulpits. So Al-Aqsa Mosque is a vivid site. It's a learning place, it's a spiritual place. For a lady, it could be a picnic site. For a child, it could be a playground. For a person like me, it could be a place where you can really detect Islamic art. For an old man, it could be a retreat, and so on. Please go ahead, another slide. So this is it shows this is what we call the Al-Ashrafiyya school, built by Sultan Al-Ashraf Qaitbay, one of the most prominent patronage of Mamluk architecture in Egypt, in Palestine. he offered this building for Jerusalem, and this building with its fountain to the left is considered to be the third jewel of Al-Aqsa mosque architecture. Please, next slide. Other type of fountains from the Ottoman period to the right one, it is constructed by Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, one in almost 1537. Please, next slide. A Mamluk architecture which constitute 50% of Al-Aqsa Mosque, Jerusalem. This is the entrance, the elaborate entrance of Souk al-Qattanin. You have to remember, to imagine, not to forget that this entrance, this gate is almost more than 700 years old, and it shows how sultans, amirs really reacted concerning the development and the architecture of Al-Aqsa Mosque. Next, please. This is sort also of arcades, or what we call the colonnades, which surround the plaza of the Dome of the Rock from different periods, from different restoration. Next slide, please. So also Jerusalem, it's not just an architecture of Amir and the princes. In Jerusalem, we have really a good amount, a great amount of women architecture in the city. Especially we can really point to two main prominent ladies, Sit Tunshuk, princes from the Eastern world, mostly from the Muzaffarid family dynasty. She fled the Mongol raids, resided in Jerusalem, gave Jerusalem one of its best secular or palaces, not a religious architecture. And we have the second great lady, the wife of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, Khurram in Turkey, Roxlana in Western literature, and Khaski Sultan, the woman which is so close to the Sultan in Arabic literature. Let's go for the coming few slides to see what sort of a woman architecture. We should not forget Melisenda in the Crusader period, Helena in also Constantine time, when she really controlled and observed, supervised the construction of the Church of Holy Sepulchre and other places. Please, next slide. Could you please? Okay, that shows us the entrances, the facade of the palace of Sit Tunshuk, a lady with a great heart, wealthy lady. She used to really make many charities to the poor of Jerusalem, the religious people. Please go ahead, next slide. That is the interior of the complex of Khaski Sultan, or what we call Al-Imara Al-Amira, the flourishing edifices. This is just the entrance of the caravanserai, which is decorative panels and discs and roundels. Please, next slide. This shows the great area of such a social building to really safeguard the social life of Jerusalem. This compound comprises 4 units, caravanserai, as we mentioned. Then it has a great mosque, a hospice to hold more than 55 Sufi, and an active kitchen which used to provide 2 meals daily for the religious people of Jerusalem. And that kitchen really still functioning in Jerusalem, though the waqf or the revenue was suffer a lot of losses. So people, when they go to such a compound to take soup, it's not because they are needy. No, they consider it is a sort of a blessing, a sort of enjoyment, and that it has a good taste. Please, next slide. This is the facade of Sotunshok, which reflects the zenith, the feature of the Mamluk architecture which prevailed in Jerusalem, Syria, and Egypt. Please go ahead. Next slide. Documentation of most of Jerusalem heritage with plans, with the sections, photographies used to be our mission in Awqaf administration. Next slide, please. We saw Jerusalem, and we know that it has a great dispute, past and present. One of the most difficult situation or phenomena, it is the dispute, the struggle, the occupation of the Israeli authority. And that dispute could be found in many historical events. For instance, while Palestinian thinks and consider and really armed with many researches and discoveries, archaeological, consider that the old Jerusalem, the core of the city, was constructed and established almost 2,000 years before Christ. The Israeli narrative emphasizes that the city history started just with the advent of David in 1000 BC. So Palestinians consider the city 4,000 years old. The Israeli consider it just 3,000 years old. And that is a great dispute because we consider that as Palestinian, as Canaanite, as Jebusite, we were in the country, we built the country, we have our own traces before the advent of the Israelis by David or Yusha or something. Even the names, why we today in Arabic call or name Al-Quds or Al-Quds Sharif, in Italy, Jerusalem, Jerusalem in English, or Shalim in Hebrew, we think, and it is proved that the origin of the name is Canaanite from Or Salim, the city of Salim, or the God who preserved the city. Even from first 1,000 years, when the Israeli advent, they never used Or Salim. They insisted on the city of David. But later, this name has disappeared, and this older city Or Salim, with its diverted version in many languages, it prevailed and controlled up till when the Israelis just occupation in 1967, they re-emphasized the use of the city of David in order to indicate the Jebusite city or the core of Jerusalem or the early settlement of Jerusalem, which constructed in the in the Middle Bronze Age. Jerusalem suffers from a lot of occupation policy. This is the college or the madrasa of Tankaz, the deputy of the Sultan in the 13th century. It was immediately confiscated after 1967 and specifically in 1969 for security reasons. A justification which is never ever accepted by the Palestinian. Next slide, please. Also, one of the suffering of the city is really the excavations. It's not just as Palestinian, we consider the excavation as it is illegal and it is done in an occupied city, occupied territory, according to all the United Nations or the international community. But also we have a great problem with the exposition, with the interpretation of the excavation itself. It is biased, it is selected, it is just concentrating on a Jewish history and the Jewish interest. Any other layers or stratigraphy, it's not as important as the Jewish history, and that really makes the Palestinian and the many of the international community not accepting such results from the Israeli scholars, because archaeology in Jerusalem, in Palestine, in the Holy Land, stopped to be a science of learning, a science of understanding the past, trying to explore how the people used to think. It is become clearly, obviously, as a political science in order to justify and to help the Israelis, saying that they have heritage here, they are not newcomers, they are just returnees, and we don't have such a problem with the Israeli heritage, but to exclude and to emphasize that that heritage, it's really not academic, not accepted. It is just to justify the reinventing of Israel, as Keith Whitelam keeps saying in his book, which entitled The Silencing of the Palestinian History, the Reinvent of Israel. And he also make a critical review for most of the excavation which has been done even in 19th century, 20th century, and so on. Please, next slide. So one of our also problems, unjust, here is to your right hand what it's considered to be as the Mughrabi, the Moroccan quarter. And this is started by Saladin and even before. It used to be an active a community which they are adjacent to Al-Aqsa Mosque. Immediately this neighborhood has been eradicated, as it is seen in the left, in the right hand picture. So excavation, eradication, confiscation, suppressing, not maintaining the needs and the heritage of the Palestinian as it is in other parts of the city, is what the city and what is the Palestinian suffering from. Next slide, please. So this is also shows the dot points, shows where is what we say, or we called it the religious yeshivot penetration in Jerusalem. And here we see how what has been once called as a small Jewish neighborhood, it's becoming as a great neighborhood. By all of this has been done after 1967. And even this other color, which a little pink, shows the certain tunnels and excavation and what is the future really plans concerning the old city of Jerusalem. Actually, a tourist or someone who are interested, who are coming to Jerusalem, could easily recognize that the Israelis has really excavated many great parts, that they are constructing what we could consider underground Jerusalem, and all of this on the price, on the interest of the Arab heritage. Please, next slide. So another project which is still implemented since few years and it's ongoing, the redesign of the Western Wall Plaza or Ha'it al-Buraq Plaza. All of these projects are on the Prime Minister office. They did a new construction. We are speaking about 3 main buildings according to the Israelis' names. All of these were constructed, a new construction, a new building inside the old city of Jerusalem, which is listed in the World Heritage and supposed to preserve its architectural heritage. It's supposed to preserve its landscape or its appearance. And now the plan is to make this plaza with 2 levels, the lower one for accommodation, for souvenirs, for halls. The upper part is for to be just an open air, big, vast plaza, which really were the Mughrabi quarter. Please, next slide. Another project which adjacent to the center of Jerusalem studies what they has named the hall behind our wall. Their wall is considered the Western Wall. So this hall, which is really so important from the Mamluk period, they even never named it medieval hall as they used to. They gave it an Israeli discrimination, odd name, which not belong to its history as it is seen from its architectural fabric. Please, next slide. Another scenes from this beautiful hall, which comprises at least 12 spaces. Here where once Netanyahu, the prime minister, held his cabinet to show the attachment of the site. Can you imagine that in a Mamluk building, which adjacent to Khan Tankas, it be converted to be a place where the Israeli heritage should be as a museum? This is what the Palestinians suffering from concerning the old city, and this is a small aspect of the other action which we face daily. Please go ahead. Next slide. It shows confrontation, and I'm sure that some of you, not most of you, are aware about what is going in Jerusalem, what is going in Palestine, what's going in the land. It's daily, weekly clashes concerning our existence. Please, next slide. If one would like to sum up concerning the Israeli policy towards Al-Aqsa Mosque or Jerusalem, it could be summarized or worded as the Israelis has 2 really plans. A short-term plan, which continued from 1967 up till now, which concentrating on competing or disputing with the Muslim Arab Palestinian community concerning the sovereignty over Al-Aqsa Mosque. Who control Al-Aqsa Mosque? Who allow material to be inside? Who allow whether a group of people enter the mosque or will be denied access? Who will go to the prayer, Friday prayer? So disputed, controlling, and also hindering what it's called the Jordanian custodian of the Holy Land. And the second plan of them, which is long-term plan, and really there is a serious fear, is to rebuilding the third temple in the location or in the site of Al-Aqsa Mosque, which means that the Dome of Al-Aqsa Mosque should be in its minimum to transfer to Saudi Arabia, or if it's maximum people, it should be destroyed, because this is how we from time to time keep hearing from certain key figure person in the Israeli cabinet or in the Israeli parliament. By this, I almost, please, next slide, finish my presentation. It's not a pleasant one but it reflects the reality of Jerusalem, its status today, how the Palestinians are living, and what sort of challenges are facing. I can speak more, but I would like to give you the time. If there is certain questions or comment, I will be more than happy to try to answer. Thank you for your patience, for listening, and for all the effort to bridge and to introduce between Palestinian and Brazilian people.
Thank you, Professor Yusuf, for your amazing explanation. It was a singular opportunity to attend one of our classes on such interesting topic. We need to discuss Palestine, and the present course gives us the opportunity to hear from professors like you, classes that bring knowledge, that show us the richness and complexity of culture and history of Arab and Palestinian. But now, if you excuse me, I would like to start the Q&A session sent through the YouTube chat during the class. I would like to ask you if you want to answer one by one, or should I ask in groups of 3?
It's your decision, but surely if 2 questions, 3 questions, it will be nice. 1 or 2, then in order to concentrate and to try to be as specific as possible.
Okay, so
we'll divide them 3 questions.
Perfect. So to start, the first one question is, that is any book you recommend about the history and geography of Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Muslim Quarter? And the next one, would the lack of history documents be partially caused by the Israeli policies that aim to erase the local and regional Palestinian history?
Okay. Recommendation about Al-Aqsa Mosque and its architectural history, if I understand. Fortunately, we have now many good books, but I'm not sure whether it is available in many libraries or if it is PDF or it is really have been online. These books are either old or too big and immense to be done as a small book. But I would like to point to a few. In addition to most of Islamic sources, which is not easy to encounter, one could, for the Umayyad period, really, to go through what it's written by Richmond in his Flesson Dome, Hamilton about Al-Aqsa Mosque, Olgi Grabar about the shape of the Holy and the Dome of the Rock. There is another book which is mainly concentrated on Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is named Between Heaven and Earth, edited by Olgi Grabar and Benjamin Kedar. In addition to that, we have a series of books, especially Mamluk Jerusalem by Michael Borgwin, Ottoman Jerusalem, which I wrote the great part of it and edited by Robert Hillebrand and Sylvia Old. Also, we have another colleague who is Muhammad Hawari, who wrote about the Ayyubid period. So, in addition to many other, but the last 3 really books are so sophisticated with photographs, plans, documentation, and analysis of architecture. Now, this is about, in addition to that, one should be careful really about what it's written in Google or in the networks is not, sometimes they are not surely academic, but at least they can point to the students where he can go or we can think. For the second question, if I understand it well, what has been done or what it could be done to raise the promotion or the awareness of the Palestinian concerning Jerusalem? Yes, we compared with the past, we are in a good situation now. Many young Palestinians are really feeling attached to the city. Certain tours to introduce the city for the students, for the local people are done. Also, we, apart from what I have mentioned about the academic approaches and books and the treatises which document and analyze Jerusalem architecture, me and some of many colleagues actually tried to approach the audience by complying simple but correct and fruitful information. So the situation actually to be attached to Jerusalem or to understand its heritage for the Arabs, for the Muslims, and even for the other historical period, we are still good, but we need to do more, actually, especially to address young people through the media, their efficient approach. You know, books are so good. Really, one could not really imagine himself without books. But now the new generation, the youngs, really, they need another media. This is, we are trying, but we are not as we wish to achieve for our Jerusalem and heritage. And unfortunately, we still, maybe we have our information in Arabic, our data, but we still feel, though we are trying our best, still we need to do more in other languages. We have to approach, to address people who are under the domain of the Israeli narrative or the Western approach concerning Jerusalem, concerning Islam, concerning Arab. There is a big, really, difference between a local who speak English and introduce his language and between another one. So even we still suffer from that domination, and any experienced students or journalists, whenever he would like to seek easy information, he will be under the influence of Israel and the West, unfortunately.
Thank you, Professor. The next one is, when tourists go to Al-Aqsa, the money stays with Palestine. Are there Palestinians working as tourist guides? And the next one, Jerusalem is a tourist city. What are the rights of the Palestinians in the benefits of tourism?
Okay, this is a great issue. Why? Because we are under occupation, and the Israeli law and the Israeli authority consider Jerusalem is their capital. They have the law, they have the power, and they have the means. So anyone who would like to guide a group of people, whether inside Jerusalem or to some extent Al-Aqsa Mosque or the Church of Holy Sepulchre, according to the Israeli laws, which Palestinians never accepted, he should be or should hold an Israeli license. He should be trained for 2 years. And that training really, which many Palestinians have did really, but compared with the Israelis, we are still very few. So you will be under the influence of their narrative, and you will be really under control. For these reasons, inside Al-Aqsa Mosque, surely there were certain Palestinians who are doing special guiding for the Muslim community. But for tourists and organized people, unless he hold or has an Israeli license, it is really unlawful. It is lawful to guide, and that make it so difficult even for. Palestinians in the Palestinian Authority are not allowed even to come to guide people there. And that will make it a little bit difficult concerning the promotion of touristic or the industry of tourism in Jerusalem, which really most of tourists are coming to the old city. But actually, when they are coming to the old city, they are coming as a visitor. Rarely they spend many nights in East Jerusalem. We have some percentage, but our hotels compared with the Israeli hotels are just holding maybe 20% or less. Even for our restaurants, for our souvenir shops, mostly are taken to Israeli institution and Israeli factories or Israeli shops. We are suffering from that because whenever you are in Jerusalem as a tourist, people will feel that there is an active movement of tourism. But actually, the old city is not, nor the old city, nor the Palestinians are having the benefit which is supposed to be according to percentage or area or visiting places. This is apply for Christians places, apply for Palestinian Muslim places, and even for Hebrew and Bethlehem. Tourists are now going for Bethlehem for few hours. It's not residing there in Bethlehem, where is the Church of Nativity or something else. So this, it has to do with the political situation, with what really freedom do Palestinians to do from economic or industrial point of view. I hope I answer the question as it is supposed or it is expected.
Thank you. The next one is Jerusalem in Al-Aqsa Mosque face daily the settler raids and the confrontations with the occupation forces. Why the media doesn't spot more light on this violation? And another, could you speak more about the existence of the vestiges you mentioned? Where could we find reference on the subject?
Concerning the media, local media, regional media are really, to some extent, covering what is going there. But our problem, once again, is with the Israeli dominating the local media, the controlling, the supervision. This has to do also with who actually internationally dominate the media. Just today, I just went to some newspaper to just see what is going around, and I saw that the France TV 24 something are considering to fire or to punish or to blame 3 of its Arab journalists, accusing them by having a content which is against Israel. So we have to remember that international media are dominated by 5 or 6 main institutions which really are coloring and explaining what is happening from a Western and Israeli point of view. But concerning Al Jazeera, for instance, the local Palestinian TV, the journalists, the Jordan TV, and what it's around, they are really covering. But people, unfortunately, sometimes they fed up with such a daily negative, disappointing news. Concerning the second question, it's about Jesus Christ, where it could be found. Please remind me with the second question. I will be most grateful. Or the person who asked it.
Okay, I will repeat. Could you speak more about the existence of vestiges you mentioned? Where could we find reference on the subject?
About Jesus Christ, okay? Okay.
I think so.
If I okay, if the question really is targeting what I mentioned about the Dome of the Rock, actually, and what is the verses of Jesus Christ, really, it could be found in many historical, really references which deal with the inscription of the Dome of the Rock. Mostly, the most important, the earliest one, it is documented by the Swiss epigraphist Max van Berchem in his monumental books about, in French, about the inscription of Jerusalem city, the inscription of Al-Aqsa Mosque. And mostly, this was tackled with the people who are also dealing with the Dome of the Rock, like Ograbar, and what it's mentioned in other guides, books. But it's not as Muslims explain it, because here, actually, one could ask who was responsible for such choosing certain verses from the Quran, and what the circumstances of that. This is considered as a sign of coexistence in Islam, and this is in some other people considered as a sort and a polite invitation to announce that Islam is the last true religion and Christianity are welcome to join Islam. I think most of the treaties of the Dome of the Rock really was attracted by such verses in the Dome of the Rock inscription.
Okay, we had much questions, so we had to choose. And already coming to the end, I will ask you the final two. So, could you talk about the African quarter in Jerusalem? And in the sense, is there an African aesthetics presence on the local architecture? And the last one, is there an impact of real estate prices imposed by Israelis on Eastern Jerusalem buildings that inherits their expropriation?
Okay. The first question is about African community.
Yes.
Okay. Jerusalem actually, as a small city even, but it is really has a big heart that we have different communities living in Jerusalem. Now the majority are Arabs with Muslims, but we have also Christian Arab, and we have many domination. We have the Coptic, we have the Assyrian, we have the Armenian, as a sort of reflecting. We used to have a small community with gypsies, but all of them are really constitute a coherent and a big differences which are living really in peace. Among these also what we consider the African community. Now, originally are coming from Africa, from Nigeria, from Chad, from different parts, some of them even holding the French nationality. But now these people who came in late 19th century, early 20th century, they're really, and their children, their families, though they are proud being African, but they are Palestinians in every aspect, actually. They're related to Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they are now suffering. All of these community I mentioned, more or less, are suffering from the policy of the occupation, and they are joining the whole community of Jerusalem, even we have Uzbek, also small community, or originally from Uzbek. We have also Afghan from Afghanistan. So in Jerusalem, we have Kurdish community or family, but all of these really are sharing the same habits, the same faith, the same almost culture, however they have differences in certain beliefs. So maybe this is the sweetness of the old city of Jerusalem, that it offers different communities, and whenever you are just walking in Jerusalem, you will see different costume, you will see different faces, but all of them really are living in respect and in harmony, and it's not a sort of differences which could be understandable in a negative way, no, it is in a very positive way as a community. Now, the other question, please.
The last one is there an impact of real estate prices imposed by Israelis on Eastern Jerusalem buildings that inherits their expropriation?
Yes, East Jerusalem is suffering from different really challenges from now it appears that as the Israeli claims, they are trying to bridge the gap between West Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, between the Israeli community, the Palestinian community. No, we suffer from a lot of policies, especially the education, for instance, the schools really, which suffer from a lot of mismanagement at that time. Most of people are not joining schools, but one of the great problems of East Jerusalem, which imposed on them, is the housing policy. Housing policy in East Jerusalem, Jerusalem is really suffering a lot because they are not giving a permission to build. And whenever their necessities and they are obliged to build, this is considered to be illegal, and the destruction or the demolition will started a long operation. I think education, housing, among other problems, is the most issues which local East Jerusalem are suffering. Also, really not to be allowed to come to Jerusalem to visit from Nablus, from Bethlehem, in festivals or something. This is also a punishment which is the Palestinians' relatives who has their own relatives or families, split families who lives in Bethlehem and Ramallah are not allowed to come. Also, that sort of daily frustration from the occupation policy. Can you imagine that area which is just far away from the old city of Jerusalem, which is just 2 or 3 kilometers, are not allowed? For me, my students never have the chance to come to enjoy the architecture of Jerusalem or the museum. For other young people also, whether they are around Jerusalem or close to Jerusalem, they know about Al-Aqsa Mosque, about Jerusalem from just pictures and TV. That really is a great punishment when you are so close, but you can't go. If you are in a far place like Brazil, you will consider there is a big distance. But to be in a matter of few kilometers and you can see the monument without being able to visit it, that really a punishment, it hurts, which is not easy really to accommodate. It's not easy to speak about it because it's really hurting the mentality of a person or a Palestinian community.
Thank you, Professor. I believe that your comments have given us an opportunity to broaden our reflections. I would like to thank all the questions asked by the chat and everyone's participation. We would like to remember that the certificate will be sent by University of São Paulo in the end of the course, only for those who are subscribed and with 75% presence in the classes. So don't forget to fill out the forms in the chat. We will close the form as soon as the class is over. So if you have any questions, please contact us via email. We hope to see everyone next week here on Tabla's channel. So thank you very much again, Professor. Now I would like to invite Professor Arlene to final comments. Professor, you...
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Professor Yusuf. There's so much important information and that we do not have access to. It was very, very informative and very beautiful at the same time. Jerusalem is definitely a very special place. So we thank you very much for bringing these words, this knowledge, and this view of Jerusalem to us. And we hope to have more opportunities to listen to you and to be in touch and to, and even for our students who would like to begin Jerusalem studies and have the opportunity to contact you, that would be great.
This is a great opportunity, and the hope is still open, and sure that it will be a very pleasant moment project approach when Palestine and Brazil keep their strength and they keep their headache relation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yes, let's hope so. Yes. So thank you very much. And